you.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2025 horror sequel, Black Phone 2. The film is co-written and directed by Scott Derrickson and it stars Mason Thames, Madison McGraw, Ethan Hawke, Jeremy Davis and Miguel Mora. Now, the film focuses on Finn from the first film, the boy we saw in the first film who was taken by the grabber and managed to kill the grabber and escape. And his sister, Gwen, who obviously we met from the first film, that kind of tracked him down with her psychic abilities. Gwen is suffering from really vivid nightmares that she can't shake, that involves some dead children up at this alpine lakes centre for children sort of thing. And Finn, who is struggling to move on with his life after what happened in the first film, he's smoking marijuana, he's angry all the time, he can't really move on. And Gwen fears that there's a connection between these boys that went missing years ago up at this alpine lake place and the grabber. She convinces Finn to go with her. They head on up to Alpine Lake to kind of sign up as counselors sort of thing. There's a big snow event, so nobody else turns up. It's just these three kids and the people that run the place, and they start investigating these three missing kids from years previously that they strongly believe is linked to the grabber. However, the grabber isn't done with Finn or his sister, and he's back from the grave to exact his revenge. Right, what are my thoughts on Black Phone 2? Now, the original Black Phone came out, I think it was about 2021, something like that. I was quite a big fan of. I really enjoyed it. The whole serial killer thing, this concept of the grabber that was played superbly by Ethan Hawke, and a very, very sinister character. It was a well-made film. Now, I personally quite enjoyed the supernatural elements that were sewn into that film. And I think that supernatural element kind of divided some people a little bit. As I say, though, I didn't mind it so much. Well, this time round, they have obviously massively leaned into the supernatural element of the film that they touched on in the first one. Because obviously they have to. The grabber is dead. He is no more, so he has to come back from the grave. And the way they've sewn this story together is really quite clever in a sense of, Gwen is arguably now the focus of this film, even though Finn is obviously a big part of it. But because of her abilities and stuff, she can she's in direct danger, shall we say, from the grabber. So it's a real evolution, I suppose, from the first film to this. It has fully leaned into the horror supernatural elements, and to some degree, we have a new Freddy, I suppose you could argue, because it definitely has a real feel of A Nightmare on Elm Street, the whole Freddy Krueger thing, because the grabber now essentially attacks you in your dreams. Well, certainly Gwen, but he can also affect the real world as well, because he attacks people in the real world. And I just loved how they kind of sewed this story together and, drew Finn and Gwen's family even further into the story of the grabber and this story of Alpine Lake. That actually, once it starts unwinding and you get deeper and deeper into the story, it becomes more and more interesting. I've got to say, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was done very, very well, and I do feel as though we have now got a really, really potentially cool new franchise, cool new horror antagonist with the grabber. If there was a couple of times in the first one where he absolutely made me pat my pants. He was just so scary with, the way the masks looked and his voice was. Well, dial that up a little bit in this one. He is on another level now with these new abilities that he's got, and he is, they're just the world building they're doing now around this franchise and this character and his past and what he, how he started out, which is essentially what this Alpine Lake story is done really, really well. There's some very, very effective, frightening sequences when Gwen's dreaming and being attacked, and then in real life sort of thing, she's been flung around all over the place, and it's just done really well. And I just think, it's a very smart thing that he's done. I think Scott Derrickson here, Scott Derrickson, yeah, the fact that he understood, I think, potentially that what he had here with this film after the first one was the opportunity, if he chose to kind of take it to the next level and really evolve these characters and this mythos of the grabber. And he's, pardon the pun, he's grabbed it with both hands. And he's really, really, I think, moved forward with the story and the franchise here in a very, very positive way. I thought the performances here were all absolutely excellent. I couldn't fault anybody here. I thought the return of Mason Thomas as Finn, really, really done well there with his performance. But I think the standout here is Madeleine McGraw as Gwen, this young lady who is, desperate to find the truth, feels that she can't move on until she finds the truth, not only about these kids but her mother, who has a connection to this Alpine Lake as well, and Ethan Hawke as well, who who'd have thought, maybe not even him, that in years to come that he would potentially become a new horror icon. But it's just a really fun character, I think, the Grabber. And I think there's a lot of potential for it, I think if it had been mishandled, it could have been like a cheap rip-off of Nightmare on Elm Street. That isn't what you feel when you watch this. It feels like a new version, if you like, or a modern twist, or an evolution of, the whole horror and dreaming sort of thing. And it worked well, and I just thought the setting as well was just perfect for a horror film like this. Up at this snowy Alpine Lake with this phone that just stands there derelict on its own, with frozen lakes and all this kind of stuff going on. I thought it was just a very clever way to kind of move the story out of the urban city to a completely different location and give us a whole new change and a whole new setting for these characters. I have to say, I'm really, really up for more of these. I had a great time with this. I think for those of you who weren't keen on the supernatural elements of the first film, it could be a bit Marmite for you, this, but it's not just like in the first one, it was like the kids ringing on the phone and all that kind of stuff. They have heavily, heavily leaned into it in this. So it actually does, it feels much more natural in this film than it did maybe in the first one to some people. And it feels like a different horror film now. It's not just about this serial killer that's grabbing kids. It's about this whole urban myth and legend and this whole sinister character. So I had a brilliant time with this one. I thought it was very, very good. I thought it was scary, great performances, filmed very, very well, and a very, very effective one. So yeah, definitely check out Black Phone 2. If you haven't seen the first one, obviously check that one out first before you watch this, but I do strongly recommend this one. That's my thoughts on Black Phone 2. Let me know your thoughts if you've seen the film, and I will of course be back with plenty more content on the channel very, very soon.